So I'll just repeat the question, right? If I understand it.
I'm trying to understand.
Yeah. So is there a meaning to our material conditioning in this life?
Yes.
Like you're saying, where we are born or our family we're in, there's some meaning. Is that the question? Well, first we have to look at karma. So you could look at the basic understanding being in relation to karma, that the meaning is simply that, according to our past actions, we receive a subsequent condition or conditioning, and then certain kinds of what you would call natures, right? So we may be in sattva gun predominantly, or rajagun predominantly, or tamagun predominantly, according to our karma. But is there a meaning to that beyond this?
This doesn't sound very meaningful.
Yeah, this is just.
It sounds like an obstacle just.
Yeah. I mean, you could say, like, in the course of our spiritual progress, certain obstacles can also become favorable because they help us develop more faith and also even more spiritual strength. If there's no obstacles, then we have nothing to accomplish also. Everything is just smooth sailing. So like material problems can become our helpers on the path. Do you mean like problems or obstacles or just material conditioning? Because Kunti says in the Bhagavatam, Kunti Devi prays, Vipada Shantuta Sasvat Tatra Tatra Jagadguru Bhavato Darshanam Yashad Apunar Bhava Darshanam. That let all the problems that come to me happen again and again. Because they help me remember you, come closer to you, become more detached to this world and material life. And ultimately then I can cross over samsara. That if we don't have material conditioning, which is the root of different problems that we experience, then we tend to become happy with the status quo of our life, which is not our true highest potential. So for example, if we have, in material conditioning, we have three kinds of obstacles or troubles that come to us, right? We have adhyatmika, bhautika, and adidevaka. Problems caused by our own mind and body, or by others, or by the environment or nature. So natural disasters that may cause us difficulties, or interpersonal problems, or troubles between societies or different tribes or parties. And then problems stemming from our own mind. We see in the world, in the US, you have like first world countries where people should be happy. Do you have places where people have all kinds of amenities that hundreds of years before they could not even imagine? They said like the ordinary person who is lower class lives like a king from hundreds of years ago, with microwave and TV and washing machine and computers and phones. And yet still, there's so many troubles that come to them from their own mind, right? Or their own body, the depression. 30-40% of the people depressed, right? And taking medicine. This is all adhyatmika. And this is also part of our karma, right? We have to try to progress through that. But you can also say that if some of these problems don't come to us, then we become complacent in this world and then don't want to progress. And then ultimately, unless we achieve a higher level of spiritual position, then we're not really achieving our highest potential and experiencing true fulfillment and happiness. We may be peaceful in this world in the sense that everything is going nicely, we have a healthy body and nice family and friends. But then the Vaishnavas describe this to be actually like our circumstances are actually unfavorable. When our circumstances are really unfavorable, then it's in a certain way favorable for spiritual life. But when our material circumstances are too favorable, then we do not get so much inclination to follow spiritual life. And also through the struggle with our own material conditioning, then it's easier to develop more strength and willpower. If we don't have anything, if like you can look at someone who's very pampered from childhood, if they have never have to strive or struggle for anything, then they become very weak also. So you can say that sometimes God gives us these kinds of problems so that we can, in overcoming them, we can become more spiritually strong, I suppose. That's one idea about it. I don't know.
I have one follow-up question.
Yeah.
Going in a little different direction, but with this as a basis. If I see this material conditioning in the person that is my spiritual guide, how should I understand this?
So there's two things here. So if you're saying if we see material conditioning in our guide, how can we understand? So there's different levels.
With my eyes,
Yeah, with your eyes, you're saying it's there or it's not there.
I don't know if it is just my eyes telling me and my mind telling me.
Rupa Goswami says in Upadeshamrita, verse 6, Gangam basamna kalubud budafena panker brahma dravatvam apagachati nirda dharmahi. That in a holy river like the Ganga, you may see mud and foam or so-called impurities, but it does not alter its nature of being transcendental. It's still Brahma Darvatram, or transcendental object. And by coming in contact, it's still spiritually uplifting and purifying. So it's a tricky thing because it said you should look at the good and not the bad. Gunagrahi dos adarshi. You should not focus on one spot, like one black spot on white cloth. And there may be material defects that are there as past impressions from past karma that hasn't been completely cleared away. Now another thing that's interesting is it said that Krishna, even by chanting Krishna's name just once, all karma is destroyed, all bad karma, everything is destroyed. But it said Krishna or God leaves some mark in the devotee, and this goes back to the material conditioning question, just so that they will have to strive more to progress. Again, for that same point. Otherwise, they become complacent or static. So Krishna will, even though everything is burnt away, said, Ek Krishna Nam Kore Sarva Papanas. That one chanting Krishna Nam destroys all sin. And then it has the power to awaken pure love, prem. But then says Krishna will keep a marking of this karma, which means we may have bad tendencies ourselves, which we are not able to immediately overcome. We can look at the case of many great saints like Bilvamangal Thakur, who was very attached to a prostitute and could not give up her association. Even though he had devotion in his heart already, but still he could not give that up. You can look at Tulsidas, who wrote the Ramcharitmanas. He was infatuated completely with his wife, as if he was mad, you know, and he also had a similar kind of transformation. But it's also said, another interesting point is that the more you have desire, the more you can subliminate the desire into something positive. If you have, you know, like even you can say material lust. If you're a very lusty person, it's a certain kind of shakti or potency. And if you transmutate it or transform it into spiritual love or devotion or spiritual passion, then it becomes a very powerful force that you can use for your development. So sometimes these things that are what you would say maybe frowned upon as a bad quality can, when they transform, be very positive. Not to say, now at the same time we have to look at the other side, is that if someone is being taken as a spiritual guide and they are engaged in illicit activities or very low class activities, then it said Guru Ravya Piliptasya Karya Karya Majanata Utpata Pratipanasya Parityago Vidyate. In Shastra or scripture it said you should give up a guru who does not know what to do or not to do, or is engaged in hypocritical behavior, meaning they're preaching something and following something completely opposite, or if they are only acting to extort from their disciples. Shiva Thakur also says that Guru Ravya Piliptas, that Guru vo bahava shishya vitapaharaka. Most gurus you find only want to steal wealth from their disciples. It's very rare to find a genuine guru who only wants to help people. Especially in this age of Kali, most people are taking advantage of the institution of gurus to cheat people. And because it said that, another example is given that counterfeit money is present in the marketplace on the basis of genuine currency. There cannot be a counterfeit guru unless there was a genuine guru. That's one of the logics, you can say, because its only value is there because people know there's a genuine currency. Then counterfeit money can have some value. Same thing with like counterfeit jewels. If there wasn't a real diamond, then a fake diamond wouldn't exist. If there wasn't a real Rolex, then you couldn't sell a fake Rolex or iPod, anything. iPhone, anything. So, but the problem is then when we find ourselves tricked or hoodwinked by a false guru, what to do? So one thing is that if guru is not under any, you could say, grace of disciplic succession that is directly giving Anugatya guidance and helping him be purified through, direct guidance, then they should be given up. One thing about guru is that in our line, they're always in a disciplic succession of spiritual masters. At the same time, it's a very subtle thing. Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada said that when he was looking for his guru, Bhaktisiddhanta, the guru of Swami Prabhupada and Bhakti-Pragan Keshav Maharaj, he said he was looking for a guru. And he said, my nature is that I'm very fault-finding. And he said, if I found that my guru was, or my prospective guru was 99.99% engaged in God consciousness and service, but 0.01% of the time he was engaged in material activities or material consciousness, then I would never accept him. He said, what can I do? This is my fault-finding nature. But then when I observed my guru, Gokishadas Babaji Maharaj, I saw that 100% of the time he was only engaged in devotional service or pure bhakti. Therefore I accepted him. So it said in scripture, just to conclude and we can discuss more, it said in scripture that before you accept a guru and before guru accepts a disciple, they should both observe each other for up to 1 year. That means nowadays we think, I'll accept a guru, I'll go to a festival for 2 days, 3 days, and I hear 1 or 2 hours of classes. But that's not proper observance. Generally before they would join an ashram, and observe for, more. It's easy to speak for an hour or two before a crowd, and then you can go back to your own private, palace and do whatever you like. You see in India, many gurus have recently been arrested after they've been revealed to be engaged in illicit activities with disciples, or, one guru was very huge, like billions of dollars, and he was preaching vegetarianism, but his private cook was every day making him, beef and chicken and everything. It's actually, Purdy tells a famous story that there was a guru who was preaching about following Ekadashi to his followers. And he said, follow Ekadashi, do like this, do like that, you have to fast. And every time he was preaching, and he would never let his wife go for his classes. He always told her to stay home. He said, no, you don't need to go. So one time she snuck into his class, and she was sitting at the back of a large assembly, and she heard him speaking about Ekadashi, and the next day happened to be Ekadashi. So when she came home the next day, she didn't cook anything. And he became very angry with you. Or why aren't you cooking? She said, I heard your class about Ekadashi, so I won't cook. And he said, no, make halava, make puris, I'm hungry. And he said, no, you told everyone to fast, then we also have to do it. He said, if you don't follow, I'll beat you. And he was ready to beat his wife because she wasn't fulfilling his own desires. So this is an example of bogus guru who are preaching one thing and practicing another thing. So those should be given up. So in some cases you may see someone has a weakness, but they are still sincere. And they may not be on a very advanced level, but ultimately if you find some higher guidance, if you find higher guidance, you should request your guru permission to seek that higher guidance. And sometimes the higher guidance may say you should stay with your guru, or they may say you can come to me. With our Gurudev, there were many cases where he would give shiksha guidance, but he didn't give mantra initiation to people. And there were many other cases where he would give mantra initiation again and tell them to leave their previous guru, or tell them to take permission. It's also said that a guru, if he's if they're sincere and they have a weakness, and the disciple approaches them and says, I want to go to another guru who is considered like a pure devotee or is genuinely a pure devotee, then that guru should, if he is truly sincere, he will say, yes, you should go to the higher guru. And if they're only wanting, or if they have like institutional consciousness or party spirits, or they may say, okay, go to another guru, but in my same institution. And the Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, party spirit is the main obstacle in our spiritual advancement. Party spirit means partisanship. So, for example, you join my institution, and later on I fall down, and you want to go to a guru in another institution, but I say, no, you have to take a shelter from a guru in my institution. Or we see it genuinely amongst like Catholics fighting with Protestants, Muslims fighting with Christians, Jews, like that, This is party spirit. We think the only path to God is, the only way to reach God is through my path. It's like party spirit. Or if you don't accept my guru, you can't make spiritual advancement. So Bhaktivinoda Thakur said that's one of the main obstacles. I think in some cases you can see guru may have some, it's also according to the level of guru. If they are your mantra initiating guru, or they are someone who is helping you on the path, they may have some weakness. Also Krishna may be purifying them by keeping this thing there. But generally with this verse, Anupadeshamrita, it said that you shouldn't criticize the devotee. They may have some faults that's there from their past karma. They may have a bad temper or some kinds of faults. But it's not so much in the case of guru. This is spoken for devotees. No. If it's directly in relation to guru, then you're supposed to search out a bona fide guru, who can really help you progress towards devotional service. Generally, guru can only give you what they have. If you go to a bank and you want to get a loan, they can only give you a loan if they have the money that they can back you with. So a guru who is on a lower level, if you want a level below that even, then maybe he can help you rise up to a certain stage. And it's said that we should honor everyone who has helped us even a little bit. Maybe someone has helped us a lot in Krishna consciousness, and then later they had some mistake or fall down. But still they helped us to a certain stage, and then later we can progress further. So we still show them respect. And that's why in the first verse of Krishna Karnamrita by Bilvamangal Thakur, in the very first word, he glorifies who he describes to be his, he doesn't say it, but showing him the path, Vartma Pradarshika Guru, Chintamani. And Chintamani was a prostitute, but she helped awaken his spiritual calling. She said, you are so infatuated with my body, if you had even a small percentage of the attachment you had to my body towards God, Krishna, then you would very quickly be delivered. And so that woke him up, and then he started performing bhakti one-pointedly. And so in his most famous Krishna Karnamrita work, first he glorified her, Chintamani Jayashri, that I first honor that Chintamani. So we should see in Vaishnav culture, we honor and respect everyone. Amani Manad Hoy Krishna Nam Saralebe. Whatever platform they're on, we honor them accordingly. Okay, follow up. Time is it? Ramani, question? Go ahead.
We were speaking about this conditioning, and we will see this conditioning in another devotee. So I've also heard that the spiritual master or a pure devotee, he can reflect my conditioning. I become aware of my conditioning through his presence. But I think he has this conditioning because I see him. But maybe I got it confused.
You see them performing some specific activity, or you just are superimposing that on them? I would say it's different. If you may think that someone has a certain nature, or you may see some tendency, but you may be misperceiving it, or they may actually be performing something that you're witnessing. No. Sometimes also Vaishnavas will trick you. There's a famous story this is an interesting story, okay? It's a famous story about Shiva. That one devotee of Shiva was worshipping Shiva for a long time, praying for a benediction at Shiva Linga. So he received inspiration. It said, I think the Devata appeared, perhaps, I don't remember exactly. I think he appeared and said, okay, on the Amavasya night, you should go to the bank of this river, and I will give you kumbha, the pot of nectar from heaven. But whatever you see, you have to take it. You go there at that specific time and you'll see it there and you have to take it. So he went there one night, on that night that he was told to go, and he saw like a dead python being eaten by many maggots and spiders and bugs. And it was exactly where he was told to go. But he had doubt if this was it or not. And so he returned again, and the next day he again went to the Shiva Linga and he was complaining that, oh, you told me to go there and I would find the pot of nectar or the nectar, and it was not there. And so then after meditating again for a long time, worshipping Shiva there, then Shiva again appeared in a spurti or in a glimpse or darshan, and he said, okay, go back again this next night and it'll be there. Whatever you see in that spot, you should take it. So it said the next time he went there, he saw a donkey passing urine. And finally, okay, he went to take a little bit and then he realized this was Shiva pouring the pot of nectar for him. So Shiva was trying to test his faith like that. There's another story of a sage with Krishna. There's an interesting story where a sage in the Mahabharata time, he was performing austerities, and after the Mahabharata, it said Krishna was passing through that forest where he was doing austerities, and it was a very desert-like area, or it was like in the desert. He had nothing to drink. And he was praying for something to drink, right? So it said Indra came again with nectar from heaven to give him. But he saw Indra in the form of like a hunter, and he was offering him the drink in a leather container. Like, you know, you find these leather water container. No, what are they? I forget the name. So he wouldn't accept it. Again and again, he wouldn't accept it. And when Krishna came, and he began to criticize Krishna, saying, you know, I'm always worshipping you. I'm here, very thirsty, nothing to drink, and you know, all I was offered is this contaminated thing. No. So it's sometimes we may be tested in spiritual life, you know, and it's tricky at what to do at that time. No. Vaishnavas say that most people fail these tests, but everyone will be tested at some point or another. So, you know, it's a tricky thing. Also, one other point, okay, there's another interesting thing. It said that all the acharyas say this. Many different acharyas speak this in their classes. That when we are in regular material life, just going along without trying to, you could say, go against the course of samsara or try to become engaged in transcendental life, just living, right? Then we won't see so much agitation in the mind or in the body or in our desires as if we start following spiritual life. And I said if you start following spiritual life or trying to enter a transcendental platform, then you're not so agitated. But as soon as you start trying to do that, then your mind will become very disturbed, your desires will become more and more intense. Also your family may try to, you know, may cause more obstacles, or your environment will make become unfavorable. Purdy says sometimes in class that, oh, if you're like an ordinary person, no problem. But if you're a sadhu and you're walking the street, then the dogs will try to bite you. Everyone will try to attack you. He said, why? Because he said we have millions of lifetimes of past karma. And when we start to approach Krishna, then that has to all be burned off before we can reach Krishna. It said, agrahaya mukti, tabe sarva bandhan nas, tabe se hoite pare Shri Krishna das. Before we can reach Krishna, we first have to get mukti, which means liberation. And in order to get mukti, we have to burn off all our karma. So Krishna wants us to be able to quickly approach him. So all those millions of lifetimes of karma have to quickly be burnt through. It said like you may have a mountain of cotton, but if you light it with a match, it'll quickly be burnt. You know, but if you have a regular mountain, you light it, it's not going to burn fast. No. So that example is given that when you start following spiritual life, all your past karma starts to be burnt very quickly. So it's like if you start a diesel fire or something. No, it burns like wild. So that will cause many agitations in the mind, in the body, in your environment. All these adhyatmak, adhibhautak problems caused by your mind, by others, and by nature will increase. And that's called the stage of kleshagni, which is burning off all kinds of karmas or all kinds of, it's also the stage of suffering. That's the first stage of spiritual life. Kleshagni. It's the first leaf on the flower of, when the Bhaktilata Bij begins to blossom. There's a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita you must know. Brahmanda Brahmite kon Bhagavana Jeev Kuru Krishna Prasade by Bhaktilata Bij. When you, by Krishna's mercy and Guru's mercy, you receive the creeper of devotion that begins to sprout in your heart. And the first leaf that comes is called Kleshagni, which means you begin to experience so many kinds of difficulties and troubles. But this is a stage that you have to cross through. It's described Mahabhava Davagni, the forest fire of suffering. And when you're in ordinary life, you don't experience that. Another example it's given is if you never clean your room for like 20 years, and then one day you decide to clean your room, then when you first start cleaning it, it becomes more messy. Another example is given that if there's a forest and if it's just an ordinary forest, you don't know all the bugs and spiders and animals living in the forest. But if the forest catches on fire, then all the animals start to run around haphazardly. They all start trying to flee the forest. So the body is also one kind of forest of desires. No. And when that forest fire catches it, and our material life starts to wind down, then all our desires in our mind start running around like wild animals. And so that stage, we have to learn tolerance. That's why Mahaprabhu said, Tatenu kampam susamikshamano. You should learn to be tolerant. Punjane vatma kritam vipakam. And problems that are coming to you, you should accept these as your own karma and tolerate them, and not also look at others saying it was their fault, it was their fault. So there's many different considerations, but generally we see when people start following spiritual life, then some problems will come. And it's a test also, because we should not think it's so easy to enter Krishna's own realm. No? If you want something ordinary, if you want like bhukti or mukti or some yogic perfection, then it's easier to get. Krishna said, Bhukti mukti jadi jan palaya. I'll give you mystic perfections. You can become a mystic yogi. I'll give you the kingdom of heaven. I'll make you another Brahma creator. You'll give you those things easily, but to give you Braja Prem and Braj is not so easy. So to get to that highest stage, we have to cross through many different trials. What time is it? Anything else we can talk about? Jamuna, you always have good questions. Champak? Yeah, yeah.
It's like, why are you following this guy who's like got all of these like hundreds of girlfriends and
Yeah, yeah.
stuff, and he's just like still, he's just this kind of like, he's a thief, he's like stealing from each other, and it's still that guy. Stopped it, and she just forgives everything.
Yeah.
She just loves it. And so, I guess my question is like, in fact, goes back to this, like that spiritual mastery, that is potentially there's some defect or something in that, it's like, if still there is that kind of sense of just total love and devotion to them, and yet you see something that actually could be a big obstacle, what's the best thing to do? To just surrender actually deeper, just to your knowing, your guidance, your higher kind of guidance from your heart, to keep to stay with them. Or whether to, use
Yeah.
your mind and your mental faculties to, I mean, I would do it, for me I would try
What
to
would you
follow-
say?
I would try to follow my heart.
Your intuition, yeah.
But
They say Parama Chaita Guru is in the heart. Go ahead.
I didn't understand the question.
Okay, so in my understanding, you can tell me if I'm correct. Also, people listening afterwards. So, Krishna is a bit of a roguish character, meaning he's not faithful to one. And apparently he's meeting with many different lovers, and he's also a thief. He's famous as a thief in Braj, and he has many apparent bad qualities. And yet, Radharani never loses her faithfulness to him and her devotion to him. She's always in love with him. We see in the beautiful book Prem Samput by Vishwanath Chakravarti that this same story, the same thing that you're talking about happens, where actually Krishna takes on the form of a heavenly damsel, who is expert in singing and playing instruments. And this female form, he comes to Radharani and tells her a long story about Krishna actually, and talks about all of Krishna's bad qualities, and basically says that she should leave Krishna. So it's Krishna in disguise as a heavenly damsel telling Radharani this. And the whole story is the dialogue between them, and Radharani the whole time is defending Krishna actually. So it's very sweet actually, very sweet discourse. Now there's a few things. One thing is that it's a mistake, I think, to put Guru on the platform of Krishna and think that if he is performing similar activities like Krishna, then we can reconcile and think it's only some kind of pastime. That we see, for example, when Krishna took the role of a guru as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, at that time his character was spotless. In Krishna Leela, he's Leela Purushottam, which is that he's performing his very sweet loving pastimes with his own Shaktis. And when we understand according to Tattva, philosophical principle, then we realize there's Tattva Vichar, Ras Vichar. Ras Vichar means that according to like the heart, and the loving exchanges that they're doing there. And it's all there only to increase the sweetness of their meeting ultimately. That it's called Parakiya Ras, right? But from the Tattva Vichar, from the consideration of the philosophical conception, all the other gopis are also expansions of Radharani. She expands herself to further enhance their meeting and her capacity to please and serve him. And Krishna, from his point of view also, he's only meeting with Radharani in different forms, as the goddess has been expanded herself. At the same time, he always acknowledges her position as supreme. That's the whole moral of the Rasa Leela, is that even though they're all expansions of Radharani, it said Rasa Leela starts when Radharani manifests from Krishna's left side. It said Radha means she who is running towards Krishna with love, Rag. And so she manifests from his left side, which means the feminine side comes from the left side. So she manifests from Krishna, runs towards him, and then she expands in myriad forms to try to further the sweetness of their pastimes. So from that conception, Krishna is not actually a rogue in the sense he's not performing anything illicit. Also, all the other goddesses, including Rukmini, the queens in Dwarka, and all the other goddesses are expansions of Radharani. Uma, Rama, Satya, Sachi, Chandra, Rukmini, Radha, Tarshab, Annayavani. They're all her expansions. When he's stealing butter, we can look at all these things actually. Even anything he steals in Braj, it said they cook these wanting to give them to him. And then they hide them in their homes and they think I'll go and give them to him directly. But to sweeten the pastimes more, he'll go and steal from them. It makes it more sweet and more charming. Otherwise, if the relationship is very formal, then it doesn't have the same charm or sweetness. So most of the sweetness in Braj is through these indirect kind of pastimes. And we see with Krishna especially. Also it shows the devotion. Radharani, the gopis represent the soul's devotion to God also. And how its selfless sacrifice is necessary to achieve the highest position. Mahaprabhu says, Ashlishava padratang pinastu mama darshanang marmahatang karotvaya tatra virdatu lampato mat prananathasya evanapara. Lampata means someone who is a rogue. Said, the gopis say, oh Krishna, even though you are a rogue who is going here and there, still we are completely devoted to you. Even if you will reject me in front of others, even if you kick me or abuse me or show your love to someone else in front of me, I'm completely yours. So this is showing that pure love is selfless and completely devoted to the beloved. And if you read the discussion between Krishna after he reappeared from the rasa dance with the gopis, then they talk about different kinds of love. And how the highest kind of love is where you have selfless love. Even if they don't reciprocate with you, you're completely devoted to them. So that's one example we see. In Braj, though, everything is there for enhancing the sweetness of their meeting. That's why Radharani is not married to Krishna. She's married to another Gopa. But that Gopa is only a semblance. He never directly meets with her. He never disturbs her. It's just for pastime's sake. It's like a drama. But they also cover their awareness of this by their own potency, so that they feel like it's a real, they're not enacting a drama, they're not actually Shaktiman, they're not actually inseparable, they don't know that, but really they're just one, and they're always striving to meet. Now the second question, can we relate this to Guru? My feeling would be that we should be very careful, because Krishna is performing his pastimes in a one way, and it said, there's a verse in Srimad Bhagavatam that said that Naitat api anishvara. If we are not on the position of an Ishvar, or like God, we should not imitate him. And the example is given, if you're not Shiva, then you shouldn't try to drink the ocean of poison. Shiva was famous, right? For when the poison came out of the churning of the milk ocean, he took it all in his palms, he drank it himself to save everyone else, otherwise the whole universe would have burnt to ash. So if you're not Shiva, don't try to drink poison. So if you're not on that level, you don't think, now I'll be like Krishna and I'll have many hundreds of girlfriends, and at the same time I can be Guru. And when Krishna wanted to teach, that's why Krishna Leela has to be understood with Gaur Leela, Mahaprabhu's pastimes. If we try to understand Krishna Leela without Gaur Leela, we'll become confused and end up, we won't be able to really get Krishna Bhakti. He came again to show the glory of the gopis' love, and he glorified the gopis' love. He didn't say follow Krishna, he said follow the gopis. Gopi bartu kamalyo dasa dasa anudasa. You should follow the footsteps of the gopis and their selfless love. And as Mahaprabhu, he lived a perfect life, the perfect moral character. He was a perfect sannyasi. He followed the perfect example of someone who's like a spiritual leader. And so, we see, Mahaprabhu said, Chota Haridasir Katha Thake Janamane. It said, Jadi Pranaya Rakite Gaurangara Chandra. If you want to develop pure love for Krishna, and that you want to get the mercy of Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna, then you always remember the example of Chota Haridas. Do you know the story of Chota Haridas? Yeah, so he was No, Chota Haridas was an associate of Mahaprabhu, was a famous singer. And he was very close to Mahaprabhu. But one time he went to beg alms from one of his lady followers. And he begs, it said, whether or not he had some lust or not, it's not said directly. But he was in the celibate ashram, and he acted against the proper conduct of being in that ashram or mode of life. And Mahaprabhu renounced him, and he would not meet with him. And finally, this person even gave up their life. He committed suicide, jumping in the Sangam, the confluence, the holy rivers. Where is it? Prayag. Yeah, he gave up his life jumping in Prayag. And Mahaprabhu heard about this afterwards, and he said, yes, good. He said, Jadi Chota Haridasir Katha Thake Janama. Always remember the example of Chota Haridas, which means that if you want to receive Mahaprabhu's mercy and you want to develop pure love for Krishna, then you always have to be very careful to follow the proper conduct necessary for development in spiritual life, especially if you're in a position of a leader or authority over someone. So that's what I would say to that. Okay, Dhanavad, thank you for your time. So tomorrow we'll go back to our Vilap Kusmanjali, and Keshav Rat will be ending. Yeah, and then we want to start the morning classes also now. 6 is nice. Now it's not so hot, but generally we were doing classes before in the morning time.
I think I saw your Ram Is that how it is in class?
Yeah. We're finishing 5.